Hello, everyone. So I asked for your unpopular opinions about Twst, and you guys delivered. I know that sounds like, oh dear God. No, I was expecting a lot of like kind of fun, lighthearted, unpopular opinions, and we are going to be having a lot more serious conversations than I thought we were going to. So, content warning for discussions about racism and ignorance to privilege and privilege. I don't have any of this scripted, so I'll put a full list of content warnings on screen and also in the description, but just as a heads up, we are going to be talking about some very, very heavy topics, and I'm going to put timestamps for all of the opinions and then kind of have content warnings near them, so if you just want to skip through, that is totally fine. Please take care of yourself, and if this is just, like, not your thing, then I will see you in another video. But anyway, let's go ahead and start, because we are going to be having a lot of discussions. Oh, and before we begin, just as a quick note, I've tried to space them out, so it's like, you know, one serious, one fun, one serious, one fun, so just as a heads up, it's not going to be, like, downer after downer after downer. I'm trying to space them out so it's not throwing a lot at you guys all at once. Okay. Opinion number 1. I don't like Malleus, he's just too boring for me personally, and I don't understand his friendship with MC because they spend like 10 seconds together and barely talk. Fair but blocked? Reported? Banned? No. So, pretty hard disagree, although honestly, like, I have seen a lot of people say that they think Malleus is boring, so I don't think this is as unpopular as you think it is, because I've seen a lot of people be like, Malleus is so fucking boring. So, you are definitely not alone on that. As a Malleus protector, no. To be honest, my thoughts about it are probably, I don't even know if that's the right word. I can't think of the right word for it, but that's as close as I can get. To be honest, I always thought that they had spoken more off-screen and we just don't see it because it's not pertinent to the story or it happens in between chapters, to be honest. But also, I will say, Malleus is like really, really clingy and very, very lonely. And to be honest, it would not surprise me if Malleus thinks he and you are, like, way closer friends than you thinks that they are, you know? Because I do think that they're friendly with each other, and I definitely think they see each other as friends. However, I think MC is probably like, oh yeah, like, you know, he's a friend, but not, like, my bestest friend ever. But I could see Malleus being like, oh, this is my best friend in the entire universe and stuff. And I could see Malleus thinking that there's a lot more friendship there than there actually is. But yeah, like, I think it's a combination of things, and to be honest, I disagree. But honestly, a very fair thing, and also, again, I've seen, like, a couple of people talk about that, so, yeah. Okay, so opinion number 2. Not sure if it's unpopular, but Twst has a lot of unnecessary chapters. Like, bestie, we don't have to know what happened every single second, let's get to the point. Salty about how long this part 2 is. The battles are okay, but dear God, no Phantom will remain in hell because we already fought literally every single one of them. I mostly agree, I disagree with the battles, but I'll get to that in a moment. Yeah, I don't know how unpopular this is. I feel like most of the ire is like, I've not read all of Black Butler, so I don't really have I don't have a horse in that race, to be honest, but what I've heard from other people who do read Black Butler is that Yana has issues where she makes things way longer as they go on, and to be honest, I think that's kind of what's going on here. I think some of the pacing is kind of off, and while I do... God, there's a lot I could actually say about this, and I'm trying to keep it condensed. While I do enjoy seeing the main characters interact in the main story, we do have vignettes that people can read, so I do think we could cut down on some scenes. However, when it comes to the battles, especially for Chapter 6, I wholeheartedly disagree. I think for EN players, like, you guys have it a lot easier because for Chapter 6, you could easily look up and find multiple guides of, like, oh, what are the right battles that I need to choose for, you know, these certain points where you have to pick one. We didn't have that in JP, and so it gets really fucking frustrated really, really quickly of randomly picking a battle because the chapter came out, like, a couple hours ago, like, there's no guide, and... You know, Vill's like, oh, the ID card's not here. Okay, let's move on to another one. Like, that gets boring and bad really, really fast. So I totally disagree with you on that. The battles are arguably the worst in my opinion. But yeah, we could have some, cutting down and stuff. You know what, if we're saying unpopular opinions, I'm just gonna go ahead and say it. This is gonna sound so mean. Considering how many people I've seen and heard from that don't actually play the vignettes, I kind of feel like some of the character interactions are necessary in the main story because people aren't reading the vignettes. Which I personally don't fucking get at all. Like, why are you here? The story is the main draw of Twst. Who is playing Twst for the rhythm game? Who's playing it for the battles? Maybe there's some people. But, the story's the main draw, and I really don't get people that just ignore the vignettes and don't read them. I get it if you're just skipping through them and you're gonna go back to them later and you forget about it. I get that. But, people just straight up don't pay attention to the vignettes, and I'm like, why, though? So maybe Yana's oh, people are ignoring them, so I just need to put shit in the main story. Again, I know how mean that sounds. I don't really know if I mean it mean or not. It's just confounding to me, because I'm the story's the good part. Why are you skipping vignettes and not intending to go back and read them, I think it's really bizarre. Okay, Leona's in a weird place where he has a lot of stands, yet I feel like his character isn't being appreciated enough. Lots of players boil him down to cool, sexy, depressed second prince, but he's more than that. More than everyone, he loves taking care of other people the most, even with people outside of Savannah Claw like Apple and Jamil. He knows the best and worst qualities of people near him, and he knows what's going on just by quietly observing. He has a lot of qualities that are so fit for a leader, which makes his situation even more heartbreaking. There's a lot to say about him and how his character is developing through the main story, and I just love how well written he is. Don't get me wrong, I love a mentally ill sex symbol. Why are you putting a joking? That is correct. But I just wish we can appreciate him more. Oh god, I have a lot to say about this. So I'm gonna start this off by saying that this is not a Twst specific issue. This is in every single fandom. I don't support it anymore. Don't worry, I do not support this anymore. But Attack on Titan, had this issue pretty badly when it came to Sasha. She had one scene where she was, eating a potato, and people were like, oh my god, loving potatoes and loving food is, her personality trait. That's all Sasha is. And, she's a bad bitch. She's more than just liking potatoes. But, people made that her whole thing, and this is in every single fandom. I just know that because I, used to like Attack on Titan. And again, I don't anymore. I don't support Attack on Titan anymore, don't worry. But that is definitely what I think about, and especially considering all of the, fandom subcircles I was in the Attack on Titan fandom. But yeah, I think boiling characters down to one character trait is a problem, and I feel like Leona arguably is one of the worst in Twst that has this problem. I think other characters definitely have it as well, but I feel like Leona definitely gets it the worst. And like I said, I don't know how much of it is just people don't read the vignettes and they don't read other things. Because, I don't know if you guys saw this, but, a while ago on Twitter and TikTok, I don't think this was on Tumblr, but people were like, Leona would be, an abusive boyfriend, and, Leona would cheat on you, and Leona's a misogynist, and I'm just like, are you stupid? I'm sorry, but are you stupid? You know what? I fully intend to be mean saying that, actually. I fully intend being mean. I don't know, it just really baffles me when people want characters to be worse than it's like the whole thing with Rolo. I got into an argument with a friend because they kept insisting that he was actually secretly racist, and I was just like, why do you want him to be racist? Why? But yeah, and also, speaking of racism, I do think that racism probably plays into Leona and how he's perceived by the fandom. And there's probably a lot of things concerning racism with Leona that I'm totally missing. There's probably a lot that I'm missing there, but I have seen, Black fans, mention it and stuff. There's also a lot that we could say of, well, why do you want Leona to be a cheater? Why do you want him to hate women? I think we need to have a discussion about that, because there's so many issues there to unpack. We need to unpack the entire suitcase at that point. But yeah, I don't know. I definitely agree with you. Leona's definitely, mischaracterized, and, people don't really get his character. And while I've personally, again, it's I haven't seen people be oh, he's misogynist. I've only seen people talking about it, thankfully. Leona's a really good character and very interesting, and I do wish that people would, stop I wish they would stop, Leona's a really interesting character, but it's like, he's so prone to getting mischaracterized, whether good or bad, although I guess you could argue even the more positive things are probably bad, because it's not his character, but there's so much going on with Leona, that could be its entire video, honestly, on how Leona's mischaracterized, and I do have a lot to say, but honestly, I wrote some bullet points down, but, not a whole lot. I think people should make their Disney OCs on Disney movies they like, that have been forgotten or owned by Disney as a whole. I'm serious, Disney now owns the rights to Anastasia. They also have that one version of The Thief and the Cobbler, and May James and the Giant Peach, with a lot of other great movies. So what's stopping people from doing this? I'm going to assume that you're younger than me, because I remember when I was, I actually have a really funny, tangent about Anastasia. But, when I was young, there was a lot of discussion on, people thinking that Anastasia was a Disney movie back then, and then people being like, no, it's not! And there was, this huge kind of thing about that. So I'm gonna assume that you're younger than me, and you just never knew that that was a thing, but I feel like because of that sort of thing, people don't really think of Anastasia as as a Disney movie, because of that. And, not gonna lie, I also kind of forgot that they own the rights now. Anyway, side tangent about Anastasia. My parents split up when I was young, and so my dad had me for the weekend, and so we were watching Anastasia, and I don't remember why, but, we were talking as he was getting me ready for bed, and he was like, oh, well, that's not what really happened, right? And I was I was 6 or 7 when this happened. And he's like, oh, that's not what actually happened, right? And I was like, oh, really? What's the actual history behind Anastasia? Because I loved history as a child. I still do. And he was like, oh, she and her whole family were shot by a firing squad. I was 6. I was 6 when he told this to me. And I was like, what's a firing squad? What? And so then he was talking about how her whole family got murdered. Again, I was 6. But then again, there was a lot of things that I learned about when I was far too young for it. I was obsessed with the Jack the Ripper case when I was, around this age as well. So maybe my dad was like, oh yeah, they can handle it. They like Jack the Ripper. They're fine. I was obsessed with Titanic and volcanoes and, murder. And, my family always had on either Dateline, Forensic Files, or History Channel when I was a kid. I think a lot of you are like, oh yeah, that explains a lot. That explains a lot. But anyway, so that's my funny Anastasia story. That is my funny Anastasia story. Anyway, so going back to it, I do think people should make more Disney OCs on other things. I've seen a lot of people make OCs or dorms based off of rides and stuff, which I also is it's a slay. It is a slay, Your Honor. But to be honest, I kind of think it boils down to one, people forgetting that Disney owns the rights to so many different things, because Disney, but also, I feel like probably people just go back to their staple, well, I think there's two things. I think one, people probably go back to their staple favorite childhood movies that were, very popular. It's I loved Atlantis as a kid. Again, I'm sure all of you were like, oh my god, of course. That makes perfect sense. But I loved Atlantis as a kid. But my other favorite movies were, Sleeping Beauty and Snow White. Those were, tied for my 2 favorite movies. And I'm sure a lot of you are like, oh, that makes even more sense now. I'm just gonna be wearing clown shoes in this entire video. But, I feel like a lot of people probably just remember the more popular ones, and also I'm doing a study on this, so, I'm gonna talk about this more in a couple months, but, I feel like people also have an innate need for wanting other people to like their OCs and want them to be popular, and I feel like OCs get such shit, interaction in the first place, and don't do very well when it comes to, fan fiction and stuff, that I feel like people probably will also go with what's more popular or what's more remembered, because they'll theoretically get more traction that way, which is sad that that has to be a thing, but, I don't know, maybe we should be nicer to, and try OC fanfiction more often, because, again, I'm doing a study on this currently, and, I'm just gonna say, I wrote 2 obviously, this is gonna be its own video later. I wrote 2 fanfictions. One was a X-Reader, and the other was an XOC. And the X-Reader has, I think, 3 or 4 times the amount of traction that the OC one did, and that's fucking depressing. That is so fucking depressing. And honestly, I can't blame people for wanting to do popular things so their OCs actually get attention, because you spend so much time making your OCs and then they don't get any notes, and it's like, great, I feel great about myself now, you know? But yeah, I mean, I would just assume that people are going back to their staples and maybe not remembering the more lesser known things, or lesser, you know, popular things from their childhood, and also maybe they are picking more popular things because, just take a chance on people's OCs, please. It won't kill you. Sebek and Rook are actually amazing characters, and I feel like the fandom doesn't give them enough love. Also, the hate Rook was getting because of Book 5 was really unnecessary. Hard agree. Hard fucking agree. I think with Sebek and Rook, like, they both have a lot of really uncomfortable things about their character. Like, Sebek has some internalized racism that he really needs to start working through, and it's kind of uncomfortable. And Rook, listen, I make the joke that I am a Rook apologist, and he's done nothing wrong ever, but, like, Rook can be actually kind of a really, like, he can be an asshole, you know, like, I don't think committing microaggressions is a cool thing. That's bad, actually. I don't think it's cool to make your boyfriend, like, so, you know, kind of upset about himself gaining weight that he doesn't want to have treats, like little snacky treats. I think that's kind of a shitty thing. And I feel like for someone who claims to know his boyfriend the best, that he didn't realize that that's what's gonna happen. Or maybe he did, I don't know. And then also that's not even taking account to the stalking and stuff. Like, you know, I think people are fair if they don't like Sebek and Rook because of all of these things, because those are incredibly, like, uncomfortable things. And I think it's perfectly valid for someone to not want to interact with those characters because it's very uncomfortable and very, like, bad for, like, listen, I know Rook would automatically just, like, I know if Rook said something to me like, oh, you gained weight, like, I would absolutely, you know, fall back into anorexia. Like, I absolutely know that I would do that. I do think, though, that they are very good characters, though. Like, they're, like, Rook, the thing with Rook is that I do think he is a genuinely nice guy, but I think that all his, like, love of hunting, I think, and his love of beauty stops him from being a really great person at times, you know? And I'm talking about, you know, like, him telling Vil that he gained weight, and him, you know, being weirdly racist to Malleus for no reason. Well, I mean, for, you know, hunting reasons, and it's like, hey, that's really kind of shitty. Understatement of the year. They are really good characters, but I also do understand people not wanting to interact with them and not giving them love because of that. And yeah, I do think a lot of the hate Rook was getting was really unnecessary, but yeah, I agree. Like, I think they're very good characters, and while I do wish people would, like, you know, kind of see them as a whole, like, I don't blame people for not wanting to, like, interact with them at all, because, again, they do a lot of really uncomfortable things, and there's a lot of really, like, things about them, you know? I wish event NPCs can be more involved in the main story, or if not possible, vignettes. I just feel like there's only so much you can do with the student NPCs and the cast interacting with each other. I also feel like lore can be shared more interestingly this way. Hard agree. I don't know, it just kind of sucks that, like, we only get these characters for, you know, 5 seconds and then they're gone. Especially for, like, oh god, this hasn't come out yet in EN, but there is one event that we are getting this year called Glorious Masquerade. I'm sure probably a lot of you have heard about it. And, I feel bad for the VA because it's like, I mean, he's not hurting for roles. Like, it's Hiroshi Kamiya. Like, he's not hurting for roles at all. But it just sucks because it's like, he got cast as one of the NPCs because the NPC does have, like, voiced lines. And then we haven't seen that NPC since, and it's like, I really wish that he was, you know, in the story more, because honestly, that just sucks for Kamiya, you know? Like, and again, it's like, I know that he is not hurting for roles, like, he is one of the most famous Seiyu, period. But it just kind of sucks, you know? But yeah, like, I wish that we could have more of them. Like, I would love to see Najma again. I would love to see Eliza again, or Maria again. Like, I would love to see them. And it just kind of sucks that we don't see them, you know? Their art's done. Like, the rigs are done. Come on, can we have it, please? Can we have more of them, please? Kalim is a sun drainer. His ignorance makes him unlikable and malicious. First things first, if I see any of you guys giving this person shit in the comments, I will block you and delete your comment. I am not fucking around. This person is incredibly valid and fair for thinking this about Kalim. So if any of you are wanting to fight them, or you're going to be an asshole about them, I am going to block you. People are allowed to have this opinion, especially when it comes to matters of privilege, which we're going to talk about in a moment. So, yeah, don't be an asshole, or you're going to get blocked. Like, I'm not kidding. That being said, I see where you're coming from. Obviously, it's, like, fair, you know? I guess I sort of disagree, but I think this is such a personal issue that it's like, I don't really think that means much, quite honestly. With the whole malicious thing, I'm going to assume that you're going for the vibes of that word, and not the traditional meaning of the word. Like, I don't think that he's intending to do people harm. I think that, you know, the harm that comes from actions like that are around that kind of privilege, at least in his case, are an accident, which that doesn't make it okay, but it does. I think there is a difference between accidental and, you know, intentional. For me personally, his ignorance around his privilege is more annoying, and I also kind of am irritated with the game framing it like, oh, hee ha ha, like he doesn't know how much money he has, and not being like, ooh, this is kind of an issue, you know, and it's a poignant issue for a lot of people, you know. It's like, I didn't really have a lot of money growing up, so it's like, I get it. And I really like Kalim personality-wise, and I do think that he means the best, and I do wish someone would sit him down and explain to him how, like, terrible capitalism is. And I would like to think if he understood how many people he was hurting, and how much people his family was hurting with capitalism, because capitalism is, like, inherently a pretty shitty, thing. I feel like he would want to start trying to break that cycle. However, like, right now in the game, he's very much in that sense of, like, he knows he can fix issues by, like, and help people by, like, throwing money at them. And on one hand, yes, he should be trying to get rid of a lot of his wealth. He's not doing anything to, like, stop this from happening in the future, you know? It's like, okay, well, one good thing, but also you need to be doing a little more. For me, like, I do think Kalim is a genuinely nice guy, and I really wish that he would be more aware of his privilege. But again, like, I absolutely see where you're coming from. And again, if I see anyone trying to come for this person in the comments, I am blocking you, because what the actual fuck? People are allowed to be upset at others being ignorant of their privilege. I don't know, maybe I'll just turn comments off for this video to preemptively stop this. But, yeah, if I see anyone being, you know, awful, I am going to block you and delete your comment. Like, do not. Just fucking don't. Okay, so I actually had two that, were about the some localization choices, but I ended up making that their own video, so that will be on its way, so I'm gonna have to switch things around on my doc, because I did not update it. Whoops. Okay, so, signature spell sounds better to me than unique magic. I disagree, but it's not because I think unique magic sounds better, it's that I don't have a preference, so I don't think one sounds better than the other. I like them both equally. So I disagree just because I don't like any of them more than the others. Jamil does not hate Kalim, he hates the system. He does actually care for Kalim, he just wishes that the system wasn't there, you know? This is a really hard one. I would say agree, however, I don't know. I'm trying to think of how to verbalize this. Jamil absolutely hates the system, however, I don't even know how aware Jamil is that he hates the system more than he hates Kalim. Because for me, I feel like Kalim has become to represent the system that is, you know, just fucked over Jamil and, like, so many other people. I mean, there's a lot that you can say about the situation and about Kalim kind of tying into what we were talking about earlier. But I do feel like for Jamil, Kalim is a symbol of the really fucking awful system. And while I do think that he does care about Kalim, it's like, I don't know how aware of that he is, you know? I don't know how aware he is that he does, you know, kind of care for Kalim, and I don't know how aware of... How do I even begin to explain this? I guess it's like, how aware is Jamil of things? Because clearly he hates the system, but also he does hate Kalim in that sense of Kalim symbolizing the system, and also Kalim playing into it. Like, I'm not gonna act like Kalim is totally innocent in this whole thing. I do feel like Jamil does care for Kalim a little bit, but, like, I don't know, their whole situation is just so messy that it's like, and everything is so blended, and then it's like, how do we even begin to separate this, you know? Like, how do we even begin to unravel this, you know, tangled ball of yarn, you know? I would agree, but I don't think Jamil cares for Kalim all that much, but that is just me personally. I do think he does care for him a little bit, but I don't think that it's like, you know, BFFs forever sort of thing, you know? I did not anticipate this, but because I took away those two, localization things, and I have to switch things up, I'm kind of left with all serious ones. So, let me think of a personal opinion that I have that would be unpopular. Let's see. Glorious Masquerade Malleus is far prettier without the mask than he is with. I feel like a lot of people just went feral for, this card, which they should. But I definitely think that he looks way better without the mask than he does with. I think some of the characters look better with masks, but, Malleus is not one of them. I like the mask, don't get me wrong, I like it, I think it's a look, but, he looks way better without it. That is my unpopular opinion. Okay, so, next one. Kalim's trauma often gets overlooked real easily by fandoms, which sucks, because the dude was literally kidnapped and stuff. Like, dude, he's traumatized to the core. Kalim needs therapy really badly. Also gonna say, I'm very surprised of how many Scarabia opinions I've been sent in. I kind of didn't think they were very popular. Except for Jamil. But, yeah, I didn't think that they were as popular as this. But anyway, yeah, like, Kalim's voice actor has talked about it and said how he kind of plays Kalim and interprets him as not knowing when he's going to die, Kalim. And so he's trying to, like, have the best day every day, and I'm like, wow, that's really fucked up. That is really messed up. Yeah, I do wish that Kalim would go to therapy, but also, yeah, it's like, guys, kidnapping's very bad, but also, I think this actually plays in a little bit more to what I was talking about with Leona, is that people kind of pick and choose what they want about characters, and what they remember about characters, and I feel like a lot of people don't remember that Kalim's got kidnapped and, like, poisoned several times. I don't think people pay attention to that, or at least they don't really think about it very carefully. And obviously the thing with the voice actor, like, I would not expect EN players to know that, because, like, it's not really easily accessible information to non-Japanese speakers, so, like, that's not something I would expect people to know. But yeah, I agree, and I wish people, again, I just wish people would not reduce characters to, like, only a couple, like, one or two character traits, and I wish that we could look at things a little more holistically, but that's just me. Okay, okay, so, oh god, okay, so we're gonna end on a fun one, because, you know, serious fun, so, oh god, I'm gonna have to think of another one. Let's see. Here's a fun one that is so incredibly unpopular, and I know it. This is my personal one, and I don't care if people know if this is my personal opinion. Octavinelle is highly overrated. It is highly overrated. Like, I like Azul and Jade and Floyd, okay, but, like, I don't think they deserve as much popularity as they have, and I don't think they're, like, again, I just think they're overrated. Like, they're okay, but, like, I like other characters a lot more. And I personally don't super get the well, I don't know. It's like, I guess I kind of get the appeal, because, like, Azul is relatable because of, you know, bullying and eating disorders, you know? It's like, I was there once too, buddy. Like, I was there once too. We would have been skipping lunch together, you know? And then, you know, barely eating at home, and then, anyway, like, Jade is very funny. Floyd, I don't actually care for all that much often, like, quite honestly. But yeah, I don't know. I think they're all very overrated. I don't really care for their character designs all that much either. It's not even a case of like, oh, well, at least they're pretty. Like, not really. I don't get it. I just don't get it. But anyway, so those are the unpopular opinions that I got, and also, just thought of off the top of my head. Yeah, I will probably do this again at some point. I might do it with Genshin as well. But, anyway, again, be nice to people who submitted things. Be nice to people who submitted things. If I see people being rude about those sort of things, like, I will block you. Like, I don't fucking care. I literally do not fucking care. You know, like, people are allowed to feel the way they do. And, like, none of these are a case of where what they're doing is harmful. You know, if they had said something vaguely racist, it's like, okay, yeah, I think we need to talk about this a little bit. But, like, these are all very valid opinions, and if you disagree, that's fine. But, like, don't be a fucking dick, you know? Anyway, I don't know when I'll do this again, but I think I will do this again at some point. And that's pretty much it. I will see you guys later, and yeah, bye everybody! Once again, thank you everyone for watching my videos. If you would like to support me beyond liking and subscribing and all of that, I have a Patreon and I also have channel memberships. If you like live streaming, I live stream over on Twitch every Tuesday, Thursday, and Sunday. And yeah, bye! Shameless plug over.